I've seen things that nightmares are made of. Do you believe in ghosts?
The following footage you are about to see is raw, unscripted footage of a paranormal investigation of an alleged haunted location by the Southern Indiana ghost hunters. Any evidence, if any, that is found within this footage is the interpretation of the Southern Indiana ghost hunters, but may not be the only explainable reason for such evidence. It's up to the viewer to decide.
Pigeon Roost State Historic Site is located between Scottsburg and Henryville, Indiana, near Underwood, Indiana. A one-lane road off U.S. Route 31 takes the visitor to the site of a village where Indians massacred 24 settlers shortly after the War of 1812 began. Pigeon Roost was established in 1809 by William E. Collins, 1758 to 1828. And consisted mainly of settlers from Kentucky. Collins and his family held the original land grants in what is now known as Nelson County, Kentucky, signed by the Governor of Virginia, Patrick Henry. After passage of the Northwest Ordinance, many families moved across the Ohio River to homestead the fertile lands of southern Indiana. Families living in what is today Scott, Clark, Jefferson, and Washington counties still can often trace their ancestry back to these early Hoosier families. The town was named Pigeon Roost because of the great number of passenger pigeons in the area. This settlement consisted of a single line of cabins stretching north and south approximately 1 mile east of the present town of Underwood. The nearest Indian village was located some 20 miles north near the Muscatatuck River. None of the Indians from this settlement are believed to have taken part in the attack on Pigeon Roost. The closest forts, called blockhouses, were one in the north in Vienna in present-day Scott County, and another built by Zebulon Collins to the south near what is now Henryville in Clark County. On September 3, 1812, a war party of Native Americans, mostly Shawnee, possibly including some Delawares and Potawatomis, made a surprise attack on the village, coordinated with attacks on Fort Harris near Terre Haute, Indiana, and Fort Wayne the same month. 24 settlers, including 15 children, were massacred. 2 children were kidnapped. Only 4 of the Indian attackers were killed. The hostile Indians first struck the cabin of Elias Payne. Payne's wife and 7 children were all killed and scalped. Elias was later found by the Indians in the woods with his brother-in-law Isaac Kaufman, and they too were killed. Elias Payne had been only wounded, but with no one to tend to his wounds, he bled to death. Payne's grave was later destroyed during the construction of Interstate 65. Some settlers managed to escape to the blockhouse of Zebulon Collins, but the Collins family lost many members. Henry Collins was killed and his pregnant wife stabbed to death. The scalp of her unborn child was among those present to the British at Fort Detroit as proof of the Indians' deed. Henry Collins' brother, Richard, was serving in the Army under the General William Henry Harrison, but his wife and 7 children were among the dead. William Collins' actions during the attack have been the subject of conjecture. One account has him killing 4 Indians single-handedly and then holding off the remainder of the attackers with broken or unloaded rifles. Another version has Collins and his youngest son sneak out the back of the cabin and hide in a nearby cornfield until the family finally were able to escape to Zebulon Collins' blockhouse. The wife of John Biggs, a sister of William Collins, heard the war party approach her cabin and fled with her 3 children to hide in a thicket. The raiders could tell the cabin had just been evacuated, so they burnt it and searched for the family. As one of the Indians approached the thicket, the youngest child began to whimper, and Mrs. Biggs stuffed her shawl into the infant's mouth to keep it from betraying their hiding place. When the raiding party moved on, the Biggs family was able to reach Zebulon Collins' blockhouse, but the infant had died of suffocation. As news of the massacre spread, the other Pigeon Roost settlers fled and assembled at Zebulon Collins' blockhouse. The Indian war party left before the local militia based in Charlestown could react. The militiamen, led by Mayor John McCoy, followed the attackers as far as the Muscatatuck River, where the trail was lost. A force of Indian Rangers from Washington County, Indiana, under Captain Henry DeWalt, intercepted the Pigeon Roost Raiders at Sand Creek in modern Bartholomew County, Indiana. One of the Rangers, John Zink, was shot and later died, but the war party was able to escape with only a few casualties. According to contemporary reports, the leader of the attack was rumored to be an Indian named Misselmota. He was captured on September 20th, 1813, and under the threat of death confessed he had led the raid. He claimed to be the close confidant of the Indian chieftain Tecumseh, and told his captors the British had been supplying the Indians with arms and equipment since 1809 in preparation for war. The raid was the first Indian attack in Indiana during the War of 1812. The Pigeon Roost settlement was rebuilt, but was eventually abandoned. Most of the victims were buried in a mass grave to include the members of the Collins and Ritchie families. Indian Ranger John Zink was buried in Salem, Indiana's Brock Cemetery. After our visit to Pigeon Roost, Cy decided to journey on to the nearby cemetery of Bridgewater to check on the reportedly missing or moving tombstones. We visited this site last year and took a few pictures and wanted to compare them to pictures of what the site looks like today. Here's what we found. Upon comparison of what the site looks like today as compared to a picture we took from 2017, it does appear that some of the stones are missing. Could this be the work of vandals, pranksters, occult practitioners, or farmers, possibly using tombstones as counterweights on some of their machinery? We just don't know. We'll let you be the judge. Whatever the case may be, Bridgewater is still a very interesting cemetery and has an eerie feeling to it because there's an eerie silence as you walk through the cemetery. Further investigation will be required.